And so back into more of the implications of cause and effect in astrotometry and some analysis. And there's going to be a little bit of speculation here on things that I haven't really hammered out yet specifically. And one of the challenges with the earthquake prediction, potentially using astrotometry to predict the earthquakes, is the nature of the cycle that is part of the movement of the Earth. And the concept is that when you have if you have the sun and you have this coronal hole on the sun, that this indicates a particular movement of mass on the Earth through time. And that if you consider on the Earth the space that would be moving, if you consider the place, the region that would be experiencing a sudden movement from that a hypertime shadow or foreshadow. Now, the issue in astrotometry is not if the Earth is going to move, because when you see this shadow, this hypertime shadow on the sun, this is something that's going to happen. It's going to change. The physical structure is going to change. I don't think there's much that can be done about it. At the point where we see the hypertime shadow of something that's going to be moving, it's going to move. But the issue is, where did this come from? What is the causal relationship? Was this caused by the earthquake, or did the earthquake cause this? That's the question. That's one of the interesting questions in astrotometry, because it's understood to be a cycle. So what we're seeing in the coronal hole is a disturbance in the energy form, in the aspect that is responsible for the continuity of the matter on the Earth. And this disturbance is only one of the hypertime aspects of this. In other words, there's a resonation that moves through time in both directions. And that connects the movement of this Earth to all of its other moments in time. And so it's a cycle. The concept is that if we return to this model where we have this object, if you consider the particle of the Earth that would be changing, that would be seriously displaced in the event of an earthquake. If you consider this particle, it's the movement through time that connects the object with itself in a huge circle. So this actually becomes a sort of circle that undulates with the other universes. And so the concept is that this space that surrounds the Earth and that we perceive as the cosmos is that mechanism, is a part of that mechanism that is intricately related to the continuity of the physical matter on the Earth. And this is a terribly, terribly difficult concept to grasp. This connection that it makes through time is the resolution of the supersymmetry that we see on the subatomic level in the form of the photon spin entanglement. And so this is the solution in astrotometry, is that what is moving isn't the photon, but that the photon is what is translating the physical matter through time. And so this space where the earthquake happens, if you consider the space where the earthquake happens, this is that seventh stage where the waveform restarts. The earthquake is part of a waveform that travels through time and space, that goes out and comes back. And so this is the hypertime foreshadow isn't always something that independently creates something. It's something that dependently creates something. The change on the Earth isn't independent, and so this change is part of a cycle of movement that has been has been happening for a very, very long time in the case of the earthquake. And so if you want to understand the nature of cause and effect as it relates to phenomenon like this, these hypersymmetric phenomena that are separate in time and reflected in spatial movements, you have to consider that these events are traveling around circularly in time. So if this is the earthquake, if this is the point where the earth moves, this photonic relationship travels through space, reverberating through space, and returns to the place where it originally happened to resonate in time. And this resonation in time is intricately related to its manifestation in the first place. And so what we're seeing is the curvature of time-space itself as time curves back on itself. This is in a sense the rest of the picture as far as the spatial analysis and the reason that we see space as being curved. And so as far as the cause and effect relationship, there's the big question that comes up here. And that question is that if there was an event that took place of this nature, would it have a hypertime foreshadow if it wasn't the continuation of another event that was similar to it? And so this is one of the big questions in astrotometry right now, with where I am with it, is there a hypertime foreshadow for an event that doesn't have a shadow? So in other words, the earthquake itself is the source of the hypertime foreshadow that comes through the sun to make the earthquake as it connects with the previous versions of the past. And so it's that connection through time-space that an individual elemental, what I call a space particle, makes with the rest of space, that determines what its foreshadow, what its next reverberation through time space is going to be. And so there's this relationship between cause and effect that has to do with the bidirectional motion of this underlying carrier wave as it moves through time space. And this is what I believe creates the sort of illusion of our three-dimensional world. And so to understand this properly as it relates to the nature of these types of associations, you can't use cause and effect. You can't say that there's a cause and effect, because it's the same process that is reoccurring through time space. And so the concept of cause and effect needs to be reanalyzed with the details of what we can ascertain from the nature of the hypertime shadows from events like the incoming sun-grazing comets. A more advanced way to look at this, a more advanced way to look at how these interactions happen through time and space, is to see it as being hypersymmetric. And so there is a hypersymmetry. There's a symmetry that exists through time and space between the resonations of the matter and energy patterns that we perceive as being separate, when there is actually this underlying reverberation that travels all the way through what we consider to be space, through time, to connect all spaces and all times. And so the movement, the main movement as far as the overall worldview in astrotometry, is the thing that is indicated as far as the shift in our consciousness about the nature of our world. We're going from the flat Earth to the geocentric Earth, and this would be spherical. So we thought it was flat, we thought it was geocentric, we thought it was heliocentric. Sun-centered. And now